A lot of people recently asked me about these mockups. So today I will give you a tutorial how you can make these mockups for yourself. And we start with a concrete one. For this, I just simply searched for a photo on Google, and I was searching for concrete with cracks. It's always nice to have some imperfections, and you can also just go on the street, make some photos with your phone. It will also work the same way. So just do some experiments and see what you can do with this. I take my logo, in this case, and place it on my concrete. You use your PNG file or vector graphic, it doesn't matter, but it's important that you have a transparent background. So you place your logo, and the first step is you hide your logo here, and you just save the file. You can just simply save it on your desktop or wherever it's comfortable for you. And as for the next step, we enable our logo, and we go to Filter, to Distort, Displace. In my case, I use 2020, but it always depends on your picture. So see what works the best for you. In this case, 2020 is fine. I click OK, and we produce a displacement for our logo with our logo selected. We go to Street Texture, what we had before, the file we saved before without the logo. Go to Open, and you can see that this displacement works very good. It orientates on the contrast, like on the dark and light areas, and it gives us this nice grainy effect. And goes a bit with the cracks as well. And on the next step, we can give our logo a bit blur, because you can see the original photo is also not perfectly sharp. So we go with our logo selected on Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and in my case I can just go with 0.6. You can see it's kind of similar, but it depends on every case. So just use your eye and do the best what you can do in your case. Okay. As we have our logo here, we can go and let our magic happen. We can just right click on our logo, go to blending options here, and we have this selection. And what we do is we take this slider and go to the right. And you can see that you can see some stones and the cracks, but it's kind of harsh. So what you do is to break the slider, you press Alt, your Alt key, and you can move the left side to the left and adjust the right side so until it looks good. And it makes everything a bit smoother. And that's pretty much the key for making this kind of mockups, but you will also need to adjust everything a bit better. So I think like here it looks kind of realistic. We go on, click on OK. And what we recognize here is that the cracks in the ground also have this yellow color. But as it's an old painting, it will not be in these cracks. So what we do here is to make a layer mask by clicking this icon with our logo selected and go on our pen tool, and we select a black color. With our layer mask selected, we paint with black. It means it hides. So when we paint here, it's just hiding our logo. So we go back and just simply draw the cracks out to make it look more realistic. And also with this mockups in general, it's like you go with your feeling. Like it's important that you have a good eye. You just you think about how the light comes, what looks more realistic, and try to do it with Photoshop. You can also leave some parts in between the cracks to make it look a bit more imperfect. And you see it's already looks way more realistic. Especially when you go and see it from the far. You can also, this stone here, remove it a bit. And what I also like to do is to make a new layer, and we use this yellow color for painting some stones. Sorry. Yellow color for painting some stones here. Like it's some parts of this painting, street painting. And it also gives everything some nice new details. Maybe the stone here. Okay, and what we do with this layer is also we go on this blending option with our Alt key pressed. We slide it until it makes sense and looks good. And I think this is fine. So we have the base now for our concrete mock-up. And what I also very like to do is to give the picture some layers. And in this case, I was thinking, okay, what can I do with this? And I came up with this thought of making some shadows that are partly overlapping the logo. And I found this picture here. It's just, you can even see this watermark. So don't worry, you will find a lot of pictures like this on the internet. You can just Google for leaf silhouette, tree shadow, whatever you like, or street light. So I take this picture and I try to adjust it so it's kind of overlapping our logo a bit. And here I go to color burn with this layer selected, and you choose color burn with this overlay effect, and it already looks pretty good. Try to adjust it a bit. And what it creates and makes it look more realistic for me is like you have also bright and dark areas in your logo, and it kind of looks like it's all melting together. And that's the main point when you do nice mock-ups, that you try to melt everything together, make it look as realistic as possible. And also with all the layers, I try to play with opacity to go a bit down and up and see what looks the best to me. I think around 90 here makes sense. And what I also like to do is with the new layer selected, to go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and make it also not that sharp. I think like this is fine. And as a last step, I have an overview on this picture, and I think, for example, it has too much red in it. So you can go on this adjustment layers, you go to color balance and see what's the opposite of red. You can go here a bit in this blue area, here a bit in this green area. And for the whole color balance, you can go down with the opacity until you think it's fine. I also like to work with curves to give the whole picture a bit more a unique look. Not a unique, but you know, like it's all together. When you give everything the same kind of adjustments, it kind of melts together. And what else we can do? We can also go to this color lookup, and I sometimes also play around with this different styles. They're pretty harsh, so you can adjust them later on, but it also helps to melt everything together. So let's see what looks good. Maybe something like this, but we also go down with the opacity to make it look like this. And it's already pretty nice. And as a very last step, I always do it also with my digital artworks and my 3D works to make it look a bit more analog and realistic. I go for a 50% gray, you can see it here, and a new layer. We give this layer this gray color, and we go to overlay. What it does is that the gray color is kind of hiding. It's like invisible when you go with overlay, because in Photoshop, like white is showing and black is hiding when you work with the masks. So when you go with this overlay mode, it's just not visible. And I give this layer some noise. We go to noise, add noise. In my case, I go with 15. Click OK. And the reason why I do it on a separate layer is that I can adjust it better and have more control about opacity. And you can see it's like very small difference, but it glues everything together at the end, these small details. And it's always good that you like check your steps and see if it makes sense to do these steps, because it doesn't make always sense, but I definitely like to make this kind of grain. And better to don't overdo it, don't make it too much, then it also doesn't look good. But I think we have a pretty good result here for the concrete one. Our next logo is the grass logo. And also a few people asked me about it, how I did it with the grass structure and to make the logo blend inside the whole scene. And it's also kind of the same principle as in the concrete tutorial. We have our picture. Again, you can also just take a picture by yourself. You can Google grass structure or whatever and to apply it. It also works with hairs very well. And in every case, it's like the better the quality of the picture, the better will be your result. So in this case, I decided to take a white logo. It makes more sense for the grass, for some sport events. And it's also very important to check the perspective. In our case, it's fine because it's like the bird view from above. And what we do is also to hide it, to save this file as a PSD file only with the grass. Then you can enable it. You go to filter, you go to distort, displays. I think 20 is also fine in this case. You click OK, and you open your saved PSD file, and you see that it goes with the grass. So it's already done a pretty good job. And also here in this case, our next step will be to check. It's pretty sharp. So we also go to filter, to blur, to Gaussian blur, and give it a slight blur like this. Next step, also like before in this concrete example, we go right click, blending options, and we check this slider with the Alt key pressed and slide this one to the right until you have a good result. I think something like this is fine. And also that's pretty much it. To give the whole scene some more crisp, some better texture, I also go to curves. I adjust the whole scene, give it a bit more contrast, darken it a bit. And also here I had the idea to give it a shadow. So I found this picture, just a silhouette from a golf player. You can just search for everything you know, like a football player, car, airplane, and you can work like this. I just check what mode makes the most sense. I think multiply is pretty good, but it's obviously too dark, so we go down with opacity. We go also to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and give it some soft shadows, maybe like this, to also make it look more realistic. And maybe we find a better blending mode. Yeah, maybe multiply makes sense in this case. We go a bit down from the opacity. We can maybe also play with this blending modes. Yeah, this slider could help us. I'm not that satisfied. Maybe like this is fine for now. We can also go with the color lookup and see if we find something that looks good for us. Maybe this one is quite cool. We go a bit down with the opacity. And as a last step, as always, we take 50% gray. With Control Backshift, when the color is in the background, we can fill our layer. We go to Overlay, Filter, Distort, Noise, Add Noise, and 15% is fine in this case, and we click OK. And also here we have a nice grain, and you can see these two parts, how they kind of melt together. And we have our result, maybe a bit curve adjustments. And I think that's pretty good like this. Our next example will be this koi, this fish. And I will show you how I placed my logo here. It's made with a bit different technique, and you need to tweak around a lot and see what fits the best for you. But first of all, you recognize that the structure of an animal, or in general, that this pattern from the fish, it's never completely straight or with sharp edges or something like this. So we also need to adjust our logo if we have some sharp edges. In this case, I will make a new file. And I will drop my logo here. You can't see it because it's white, but I'll give it a black color real quick. And what we do now is to blur our logo. I will show you why we do it here. We can maybe go like this. And then we go to our adjustment layers. We can scroll down a bit until you find a threshold. And what the threshold does is to reduce our picture just into white and black areas. So what we see now, if we tweak around this slider, we have this nice round edges. And it already looks a bit more, I would say, like natural. So maybe we try around like this. We can even go with a bit more blur on our logo. I think like this, it's fine. And what I do now is to reduce everything on one layer. I select the first one, second, third, and fourth. You can also just click on the first one, press Control, click on the last one, you select everything. Then you press Control E, and everything is on one layer. And what we do now is we just select by color, click on our black, go to 200, and click OK. So we have this selection. We press Control C for copy, go to our fish and press Control V. And then we try to adjust our logo so it fits on the fish in a nice area. I want to try to bring the logo only on the orange spot, so we can make our logo this color, like a white bluish color, and try to make it look like it's part of the fish. So I think around here it should be nice. And what I would like to do here is also to maybe adjust the logo a bit to give it some warp, just to make it look a bit more imperfect. Okay. And what we do now is we try to give this black area from our logo this color and keep the same structure like we have here on the orange. For this, I would like to try selecting our logo area by pressing Control and clicking on our logo. We disable the logo so we can't see it. And now we go to our adjustment layers, and I would try to make a hue saturation. Okay, let's try first. I think that's the better idea. We give it a Gaussian blur here first. So we also have this not sharp edges. I think that's better. Maybe like this. Okay. Now we select it again. And we go to our adjustment layers. I would try hue saturation first. So we get rid of this orange color. I just go almost all the way down. And you see it's way too dark. Maybe you can also tweak around here a bit. Okay. And we always click on Control, press Control and click on this logo area to make a new adjustment layers. And now I would try to make something with the color balance to match this area more and more. And of course, it's always depends on your picture, what you use. There's no like particular recipe. It's always on you what you do with this. Maybe a bit more blue. Okay, let's try curves. And also all the time try to make it look, try to have a look from far away, also from a close look. So it helps you to make it fit better in the scene. So yeah, we go a bit brighter, and you can already see that we kind of have not a bad result. So I mostly also just tweak around and see what fits the best until I'm happy with the result. It's still, I'll say, too grayish compared to this area here. Maybe here's also a hint of blue. What we can also do is give it another color balance adjustment layer, and maybe we go with the highlights. This bluish, yeah. This one is not bad. Always try to make it look not perfect, and like perfect but not perfect, so it fits. And you can always check the original edges and your edges. You can compare those colors and those colors, and I think we are pretty close, but you can still give it more adjustments. Maybe we try with hue saturation, what it will do with our picture. Also, you can enable the layers to see what it does afterwards, and if you want to adjust it in the opacity. Okay, not bad, not bad. Maybe we try levels. And we can also, for example, draw on the layer mask. With the layer mask selected, I would like to give this logo a slight gradient, to also play with the light a bit, for example, to make it a bit darker here and a bit more bright here. So now we have brightness on the whole logo, and I would like to hide this area here from the brightness. So we go with our brush with the black color selected. We go a bit bigger with the brush, and you can slightly, with the logo selected, just draw here. And what it does is, on the layer mask, it will just hide this area. And I think it's also a good tool to give it a bit more dimension. And if you are kind of happy with the result and you think like, okay, that's everything I can do for now, we can continue with giving everything some filters or a grain also, to melt everything together and make it look like it's from one picture. And your goal is that you want to make it look not edited, or at least not cheap edited. We can also just try color lookups. This one, for example. And you can stack all the color lookups. And also here, don't overdo it. Don't make too much. It's better to make it barely recognizable than overdoing it. This one is fine. What I also like to do is I select everything I did with this original photo. So in this case, these layers, I group them with Ctrl G. I copy the group by dragging it on this plus sign, Control E to make it one layer. And then you can, for example, also give it a filter. Let me find it. High pass filter. And I will just show you what it does. It gives this whole picture a bit more contrast, a bit sharper lines. And let's try like this. Click OK. And then I go with the overlay effect. Maybe you can see the difference. Even a not perfectly sharp picture seems a bit sharper. And you can also, of course, adjust this layer by dragging around with the opacity. And we can also group, copy this group again, Control E, and for example, give the whole picture a Gaussian blur. Maybe like this, but we want to drag the filter, this layer over this high pass filter. And we go with lighten or screen. That's obviously too much, so we go a bit down. But you see, as more layers we add, the whole picture seems a bit more realistic because we glue everything together, and that's our main goal. We can also, as always, above everything, play with curves and see what fits the best for us. Maybe we get a bit rid of this super white lights and give it a bit more brightness in the black areas. And as a last step, as always, I recommend to make a 50% gray layer. I go with the overlay mode. And we'll, with this layer selected, we'll give it some noise. And it helps a lot to glue everything together because now it looks more unique. So I think 20 is fine. You can see the difference here without the grain and with the grain. And it also helps a lot to give the illusion that your picture just has a better quality, I would say, because here you can see this artifacts, and with this grain it's kind of hidden. So it's always a good idea to put it on your pictures, but also with this effect, never overdo it. Just go a bit lower than you think it looks good. I think that's always a good point. So that's pretty much it. Of course, you can spend more hours in improving your picture, but I think you got the point of making this kind of mock-ups. So I hope it was helpful, and I wish you a good time with trying out these tutorials. For our last example, I will make this pool mockup, and for this one we also need to check the perspective. So here it's a bit more difficult than for the previous tutorials. We also place our logo here. We adjust it a bit, and we also see that the pool goes like this. So we can go right click on our logo, convert to smart object, and then I go to edit and to transform perspective. So I try to, okay, let's go back and go to transform distort. I think, yeah, that makes more sense. And now we try to align this perspective like it would be You can use this line, for example, as a reference, and you can use this line as a reference. And also don't worry about the overlapping, we will fix it later on. It's even a good thing because it also gives some depth to our artwork and makes it look more realistic. So, okay. I think like this should be fine. Press enter. And what we do next is to adjust the color. For this, I go with this eyedropper tool and see what the color is approximately under the water when there's something, yeah, like a mark or something. And here we select our logo with Control pressed, clicking on our logo, we make a new layer, and with the color selected, we just press Control Backshift and we can fill the selection. Now we delete our white logo. Sorry, Control D to select everything or to deselect everything. And then we have only our blue logo. So far, so good. Now you also probably recognize that for the waves or on the surface, it will break the light and it will give all the lines some distortion or imperfections. So that's also what we need to do here. But first, I think I will select the logo and give it a bit more blur because it's way too sharp. So also here you slide until you feel like it's fine. You can just imagine how you really stand there and see something and imagine how it would really look, or you use some references and it will help you a lot to improve your skills. I think the more you make mock-ups like this, the better your understanding and your eye will get. So it's, I think, also important to practice a lot. I think this is pretty good. Okay. As for the waves, we can try one thing, what we also used before with this distortion, but I think as for this part, it will not work that well. But let's try to hide this, save the file. And now we select our logo, go again to filter, distort displays, 20 is fine, and we go for the pool. Let's see what it makes. It's not bad. It gives pretty nice texture. I think that's what we want. We can always compare. I think it gives a good impression. What we also can do is to select our layer and we go to filter and go to liquify. I think it could also help us. We size our pen tool a bit. Maybe just give our logo some small imperfections, not too much, not too less. That all that matters, all what matters for a good picture, good artwork, the details at the end. It will all sum up together and makes everything look more realistic and gives it all the something extra. So let's try how it looks. Yeah, what do you think? I think it's good. And as a next step, we go also to blending options and try the sliders. You see, when you slide this dark one, you can see already some reflections of the water. And if you go with the bright slider, it even gets better. This one doesn't really do anything, but it's already a pretty good result, I think. Also here, we get rid of this overlapping. For this, we also go for an adjustment for layer mask, sorry. We go for our pen tool, maybe make it a bit bigger. With black selected, don't forget, I now draw with my mouse, but I think it's way more comfortable to go with some pen tools, but it's fine. And that's it. What else? I think also here we can go with curves, play around a bit, give it a bit more contrast, always check how it looks. We can also check color, some LUTs. This one is, I think, also not bad. And okay. Okay. What I would like to try here is to add some reflections. As for this, you can also go and search for reflections. So I found this reflections for the water, and I would like to try if it makes sense to add it. We can try different blending modes, maybe to give it a bit more depth. Okay, it doesn't make sense here, so I will just get rid of it. But what I will do is I will group these two layers, the pool and the logo, with Ctrl G. I copy the group, press Ctrl E, and I think I will give it a bit more vintage look. For this, you give some blur on the whole layer. Also with some Gaussian blur, maybe like this. Press OK. And then with this whole layer selected, you try around some different modes to make it look a bit more dreamy. Maybe this lighten is fine. Maybe 10%, 11%. And also what I would like to do is to select the color and go on the very white spot, and then we adjust it here so we have a bit details. We go click OK, make a new layer, sorry, a new layer and then Control Backshift and give it some, like fill it with white. And this white we can also blur. So we have a bit shine. And now you can see if it makes some big difference. I think it's not a big difference, but you can always try around with those things. And at the end, as always, with 50% gray, our grain, overlay, filter, distort, noise, add noise. Here it makes a lot of sense to give some grain, so 15 is also fine. And that's pretty much it, how I made those mockups. You can always play around and find your own ways and adjust everything, but I think they're pretty helpful tools. And yeah, just try around, have some fun, and you will find all these pictures, like everything on Google. I would also appreciate if you follow me, give me a like, subscribe my channel, check out my Instagram channels, Elfocto or Elfocto's World, where you can see all those mockups. Wish you a good day, good night, successful work, and peace.